show you how to work out the third mode, the Phrygian mode, okay? And now all we're going to do is we're going to take a major scale and its degree numbers and then change it into a Phrygian mode, and I reckon that's the easiest way to think of things, to think of modes, is just think of them as another scale that we change from the major scale ever so slightly. And I'll show you how to do that, and then I'll show you how to play it on the guitar. Here we go. I've written down a C major scale, okay? And now if you don't know how to do that, check out this other video, and I've explained everything. And now they're the scale degrees of the C major scale, and all we're doing is we're taking that C major scale and turning it into a C Phrygian mode. If you wanted an A Phrygian mode, you'd start off and you draw an A major scale, okay? Or if you wanted a G Phrygian mode, you draw up a G major scale. It's all about writing a major scale and its scale degree numbers, and then changing them ever so slightly into the Phrygian mode or any other mode. So I'll show you how to do that. So in the Phrygian mode, the first note, C, that stays exactly the same. The second note, D, is flattened and it goes down a semitone. Now you could say semitone, or it goes down a fret on the guitar, or one key. So D goes down a semitone to D flat, okay? So the next step, the third degree in a C major scale, if you're going to change it into a C Phrygian mode, you flatten the third. So E goes down one fret on a guitar or one key, and E goes down to E flat. Now the fourth degree in the C major scale, if you're changing it, actually stays exactly the same. The fifth degree, G, that stays the same again. The sixth degree, A, that gets flattened again. So it goes down a semitone, A goes down to G sharp in the middle here, or A flat. And then the seventh degree, that actually goes down a semitone again. The B goes down to B flat, so that goes down a semitone, or B down to B flat, that's down a fret or down one key on a piano. And the eighth degree stays exactly the same. So there, all we've done to the C major scale in order to turn it into the C Phrygian mode is we've lowered the second, lowered the third, lowered the sixth, and lowered the seventh. And that's the easiest way to think of changing things. You just lower the second, third, sixth, and seventh. And now I'll show you how to play. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how to play the third mode, the Phrygian mode, okay? Now just like any other scale or mode, it's really important to remember what degrees of the scale that you're flattening, leaving out, or raising, okay? Really important to remember. And so the Phrygian mode, you flatten the second, the third note, and the sixth and the seventh. The other notes stay the same, okay? And so I'm going to show you how to play it from afar, and then we'll zoom in for a bit of a close-up, okay? So easy stuff, here we go, here's the first octave. So because it's the C Phrygian mode, we're going to start off with our first finger on the 8th fret of the low E string. Cool. Then have your second finger on the 9th fret of the E string. Then your pinky on the 11th fret of the low E string. Great. Then drop down a string, your first finger on the 8th fret of the A string. Your third finger on the 10th fret of the A string. Your pinky on the 11th fret of the A string. Drop down a string, your first finger on the 8th fret of the D string. And then your third finger on the 10th fret of the A string. And that's the first octave. Now we're going to do the next octave. Now I'm going to show you the next octave. So let's start where we left off. So the first note of the second octave is, again, it's going to be C. So third finger on the 10th fret of the D string. Then pinky on the 11th fret of the same string, the D string. Drop down a string, keep the same position. First finger on the 8th fret of the G string. Third finger on the 10th fret of the G string. Drop down a string, first finger on the 8th fret of the B string. Second finger on the 8th fret of the B string. Second finger on the 9th fret of the B string. Pinky on the 11th fret of the B string. Then drop down, last note, first finger on the 8th fret of the high E string. Put both octaves together. Back down. close-up of how to play the C Phrygian mode. Now remember, it's only a C Phrygian mode because we're starting this pattern or shape on a C note, the 8th fret. If we started it on a B note, using the same pattern or shape, on the 7th fret of the lower E string, it would be a B Phrygian, okay? So just because we're starting on a C, it's a C Phrygian. And now I'll show you how to play it. So start off with your first finger on the C note, the first finger on the 8th fret of the lower E string. Then your second finger on the 9th fret of the lower E string. Your pinky on the 11th fret of the lower E string. Down a string, your first finger on the 8th fret of the A string. Your third finger on the 10th fret of the A string. Your pinky on the 11th fret of the A string. Drop down a string, your first finger on the 8th fret of the D string, and your third finger on the 10th fret of the D string. That's the first octave. Continuing from there, so the last note of the first octave is our first note of the second octave, okay? So third finger on the 10th fret of the D string, pinky on the 11th fret of the D string, drop down a string, first finger on the 8th fret of the G string, third finger on the 10th fret of the G string, first finger on the 8th fret of the B string, second finger on the 9th fret of the B string, pinky on the 11th fret of the B string, and then last note, first finger on the 8th fret, that's the C, of the high E string. So second octave again. Put them both together. Now remember, just like all the other scale and mode videos that I show you, now that you've learnt that third mode, the Phrygian mode, now you've learnt that pattern, and more importantly, you know what scale degree numbers to lower, okay? Take that one pattern and you've actually learnt all of the Phrygian modes. Now it's a C Phrygian mode simply because we're starting and our first note is on the C, which is the 8th fret of the E string, yeah? If you were to play that same pattern, starting on a different note, you'd get that corresponding scale. So I'll explain. So if we started that same pattern using the 3rd fret of the low E string, the G note, we'd actually be playing a G Phrygian mode. So that's the G Phrygian mode, exactly the same pattern as the C. Great, if we started it on the 5th fret of the low E string, the A note, we'd get the A Phrygian mode. And so on. I'm only doing 1 octave scales just to show you how quick it is, but so now you actually know all of the Phrygian modes there are, and you know, well done, it doesn't take that long at all to learn them. Now, it's really important, I can't stress this enough, before you sort of start thinking about scales and modes, make sure that you understand how they're created and the theory behind it, and before you start practicing them just up and down or whatever, just make sure that you remember what you're flattening, okay, or what you're raising or what you're leaving out when you're learning a scale or a mode. So because this is the 3rd mode, the Phrygian mode, we're lowering the 2nd degree, the 3rd degree, the 6th degree, and the 7th degree, okay? It's really important to remember that, okay? And so just take that knowledge and keep practicing. It's quite boring to practice everything up and down, okay? So use that same sort of the scale, the modal shape, and just make some up of your own melodies, you know, some soloing ideas, whatever. Just keep it interesting. Keep trying to think of what scale degrees you're either lowering, raising, or leaving out. Okay, well done, guys.